Hey everybody, I hope and pray that you're doing well. Today as we come to our word from the Word. And today that word is prayer. Prayer. I remember you go back all the way to the beginning of our word from the words, and it I believe we originally started with just doing some Easter videos, and then we got into doing just some different ones, and then we started looking in really into the prayers that were in Scripture. And I know that's kind of changed a little bit as we've gone along the way. But I always like to focus on the prayer, the word prayer, and even prayers that are offered anytime, because I think it's something that we can see as a great example of how to pray, when to pray, how to pray when we're in different circumstances, what's okay to pray, what's not. And I love to see even that we don't really have that many extravagant prayers. You know how often we think, oh well, I can't pray well enough. I don't have some big flowing words, and Jesus actually talks kind of against that. You don't speak so that others will hear you. You're talking to God. You're talking to your Father. So I mean, you think about it, when you're going to your dad for something, it's not some big flowing speech. No, you just get right to the point. Here's what I need, or here's what I've done wrong. Here, let me confess, Lord. Father, please forgive me. But as we think about prayer and we think about the way that a lot of us probably think, as long as, I mean, it's been this way from the beginning of time, even with Cain and Abel and the sacrifices that they offered, that one was accepted, one was not. And often we think that the biggest sacrifice that we can give to God, right, is something that has great monetary value and something that costs us a lot. And don't get me wrong, and I don't want you to take this out of context, that there are times where, yes, why do we give God that which cost us little or cost us nothing? That we do need to sacrifice of even material things. I mean, that's even the process or the practice of fasting is, as we've talked about recently. I think even this past Sunday we were talking about the reason that we would say that fasting is looking after my spiritual need is more important than my physical need for the moment. So that's a sacrifice of food, a sacrifice of physical enjoyment to make do with a spiritual nourishment, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But with all of that, we think sometimes that those physical things are the most important things. They're important. But what does Scripture say? As we've been in First Samuel on Sundays, and if you jump ahead, you remember when Saul went ahead and offered sacrifice early. He was impatient and couldn't wait when Saul offered that sacrifice, and it wasn't accepted. Why? Because the sacrifice was not the key. In First Samuel 15, it says to obey is better than sacrifice. To obey is better than sacrifice. Now, you say, well, wait a minute, what does that have to do with prayer? Well, if you look today in Proverbs chapter 15, verse 8, it says, the sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination to the Lord, but the prayer of the upright is his delight. Now, I know you may be saying, well, wait a minute, but the sacrifice I give, I'm not of the wicked, I pray. You say, well, that's not what he's talking about. Well, think about it. Think about how many, as we were talking about yesterday, those who would think that, man, I'm doing what's right, and the Lord's going to say, depart from me, I never knew you. How many of those truly, I mean, they're truly wicked because they're sinners that are not saved by grace because they haven't truly accepted the free gift of salvation. So if you think about that, those that are sacrificing then, they're trying to get into heaven by works. I mean, that's a way that seems right to a man. They're trying to get into heaven by works and what they can accomplish and what they can sacrifice. And he says, look, that's an abomination to the Lord. He doesn't want that. But look, even just the simplest thing, in our minds, right, we would think the simplest thing is the prayer of a righteous man. Something free. Something free. All it costs you is time and energy to pray. You could do it anywhere, anytime. It says the prayer. Oh, the prayer of the upright is his delight. Something that the Lord delights in. I don't know about you, but how often do we give God things that he doesn't delight in? How often do we make those physical sacrifices and God is saying, that's great, but that's not really what I wanted from you? Right? It'd be the same way of giving. I mean, you say, okay, well, man, I wrote a great big, huge tithe check this week, or I made this huge donation to some, organization within the church or some ministry in the church as a whole. And man, that's great. But what if you did it with a bitter heart? What if you did it with a proud heart? You not think? Remember in the New Testament we see that we hear from Jesus. He says, "Look, you have this little woman that gives her 2 little mites, and yet and she gave it quietly and just probably just laid it in there very quietly so it wouldn't make a lot of noise. And yet you have the Pharisees and the ones that really want to make a big show and a big to do about what they're giving and want to make sure everybody knows. And he says, look, that woman is the one that gave of her heart. She's the one that gave the sacrifice that was accepted. She's the one that gives the prayer that the Lord delights in. Today, yes, physical sacrifice is important. But today, will you sacrifice prayer? And what I mean, will you sacrifice through prayer? Not sacrifice prayer like you're going to leave it out. No, give your sacrifice to the Lord in prayer. Shut everything else down and just focus on Him. Pray from the bottom of your heart. Seek His will today. That's the prayer that He delights in. That's the sacrifice that He delights in. And don't we all want to do something that would make our Father delight in us? God bless you, and I pray you have a great, great day.